And it's actually from the book of Esther in the Bible of all places. It talks about Mordecai, who was a leader in that time.
A leader is also a light in the darkness.
I think differently, and now I believe in myself because I'm around him, and I think even more is possible.
Welcome back to Leading Lubbock, where we shine a light on the leaders shaping our city and beyond. Each guest you'll hear from was nominated by someone who's already been on the show, building an incredible chain of leadership, connection, and impact. Get ready for stories that inspire, challenge, and push you to lead bigger in your own life. Let's jump in. Welcome back to another episode of Leading Lubbock. I'm excited today. I have Emily Herring here with me. Emily, excited that you're here.
Thank you.
I don't know you super well, so
Yeah.
This is great to even just hear more of your story. We're in similar worlds for sure and have met time and time before, but never gotten to sit down in a setting like this.
Yeah,
So
I'm excited. I'm honored to be here.
yeah, well, thank you for coming. Want to tell the world a little bit about who you are.
Okay.
You are a COO at True Title Partners.
I am.
So tell us a little bit about what that role entails.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, to be honest with you. But as COO, I basically handle operations and compliance for all of our offices. We've got 7 companies in Texas and 1 in New Mexico.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of spread all over the place.
Just a little bit of everything. Yeah. Fun stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people I'm sure that you're walking alongside with every day.
Yeah, I think, I meant to look at this. I think we're up to right at 50 employees total.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
no
cool.
small feat.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. And then you have kiddos.
I
So you
do.
got 2 kiddos.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, I have Clark, who's 12, and Eleanor is 4. I was telling you they just had birthdays last week, so busy week in our house. But 12 and 4 keep life fun and interesting, that's for sure.
That is, so is your 12-year-old playing sports? Yeah.
Funny enough, yes. He's a big football guy, so we're not in football season. But he actually just fractured his foot about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, no.
I know he's going to try baseball again, and fractured it the day before tryouts. So we're not in the sports season right now, but he's gearing up and ready for next football season.
Okay. Taking a little hiatus.
Yeah.
Man, what a bummer.
I know, it's such a bummer.
Yeah, especially that age.
Yeah.
You're just like, go, go, go.
I know.
Let's get on to the next thing.
It's
And
hard
then
to be taken out like that.
hit the brakes.
Yep.
You're done for a while.
Yep,
Man,
exactly.
okay.
I know.
Well, I'm sure they keep life just so much fun.
They-
a lot of things
yeah.
going on.
Yes, yeah. We've always got something. Eleanor's in dance and, all the girly things, which are so fun after having a boy for so many years. But yeah, they keep us on our toes. That's for sure.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited because I don't know your role specifically, and I'm sure because of all the moving parts and leading a family and like, I don't know where this is going to go. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited to hear from you. So to start off, what does effective leadership look like to you?
Yeah, I think an effective leader is somebody who is curious, compassionate, encouraging, and somebody who has the heart of a teacher. And I think my view on that has changed so much over the years. I used to think that a leader, they had it all figured out. They had all the answers. They solved all the problems. It didn't matter what it was. The leader would figure it out, right? And now being in this role, I realized that's far from the case. Nobody has it all figured out. For me, I think this is an area where I'm pretty insecure, to be honest. Much more so before, but even still now, honestly. And this is something that I worked on with our mutual friend, Kathy Crockett, through her leadership coaching. So I remember sitting with her one day on our coaching session and just saying, like, I don't even know if what I'm doing makes a difference, right? Is this effective? Is it not? I didn't come from a corporate setting or organizations that had these big leadership structures where you could, be mentored or learn, right? I was just seeing a need, filling a need, figuring it out as I go, making a ton of mistakes. And so I just, said, Kathy, I feel like I'm learning from the school of hard knocks. Like, is this even effective? And she was like, yeah, that's grassroots leadership. And I don't know why, but for me, it was like a shift, right? Like, okay, that sounds way better, first of all, than learning from the school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah.
Grassroots leadership.
Yeah.
And it was just so encouraging to me to think, like, okay, maybe this doesn't look like what I thought it would, this grand idea I had of what a leader should be, but am I encouraging? Do I care about my team? Am I staying curious? Am I keeping the heart of a teacher? Well, even if it doesn't look like what I thought it would, I can still be an effective leader.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love that you even circled back around to like how it's evolved
Yeah.
over the years. And I want to circle back to you saying like that used to be having all the answers. So what is the contrast of that today when it's okay to practice humility and say, I don't know the answers? What does it look like in your seat as people come to you and maybe you don't?
I think the biggest shift for me was realizing I didn't have to.
Okay.
Honestly, I didn't have to have all of the answers. When somebody comes to me with a problem, I really used to feel that pressure of, I have to fix this. What are we going to do? How do I help them move forward? But I think helping somebody move forward looks a lot different than I thought. I think it looks like using your resources or being a resource for them to walk alongside them and help them figure out a problem. It's removing that weight of, this is all on me. I have to figure it out. I have to fix it. I have to solve the problem. That's actually not my job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So a little bit more of helping them seek the answers potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine there's multiple ways and strategies that you could use to like lead people without just being the fixer.
Yeah. And I think part of that is what I touched on being curious. There's a lot of ways to accomplish a goal or to solve a problem. And so really getting to the heart of, what is the real issue, or how would you handle this? What do you see as the best way forward? It's being curious and asking the questions and knowing that, again, there's more than one answer. There's more than one way, and it's not always my problem to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a difference, I think, of maybe looking at the problem of like, this is the top layer. Like, we're just worried about what's growing on the surface and managing that versus what are the roots and how did we get to this point to begin with?
Absolutely.
And you're kind of, to
Dig
me, it sounds like you're saying, let's not deal with the issue at hand. And it probably does need some assistance, and they are going to need to resolve that. And yet you are saying, let's start uncovering.
Yeah. What's the root of the problem?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think then it's going to help not just right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The next time around, you've got a little bit more headway.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. So can I talk a little bit about when I asked you to come on? I made the phone call.
Yeah.
Because you were nominated by Mark Murray.
Yeah. Which
and I love,
so nice.
I love Mark.
I love Mark too.
And for Mark, his nominee was one I was like, man, who's this going to be?
No
because
pressure.
He's such a rock star.
He's a rock star.
And so when he said your name, it was just, I think it's always so encouraging to that individual and speaks so much. So even to you, like, I applaud you.
Definitely an honor.
Yeah. He speaks so highly of you.
Yeah.
So neat.
It means a lot.
And so I called you and there was some hesitation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go there a little bit.
Okay.
Of just like so much humility that I just felt as if it's like you saying this isn't me who's leading. Like, I'm just walking alongside people and kind of behind the scenes. And one, I just want to say, like, that humility is incredible when you're saying, like, because I'm going to mirror a little bit of what Mark talked about on his episode of, I don't really want to be seen as a leader.
Yeah.
Like, I am just kind of the behind the scenes, and I want to elevate other people. And very much so, like, I just kind of heard and felt the same thing coming from you, and just absolutely love that. So
I love that. I think it is important. I think there's a lot more strength from leading from the back of the room than the front.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the one standing up and taking the credit and being seen. And I'd rather not be, to be honest. Yeah. I'd rather let the team shine, be behind the scenes, and just be the support person.
The chain of leadership is also really neat too, like just seeing where nominees are taking, like the directions that it's going. You're nominated in the real estate side of things through Mark and just being in the real estate world.
Yeah.
Kathy Crockett was in a different category,
Next level,
and even how it's like coming full circle of
Yeah.
like she's one that's been on the show in a different chain of leadership who is having an impact on your life, and you
Huge
guys
impact.
work closely together.
Yes.
So just so much of your story I'm just already so fascinated by. And I think you said you had a little bit of insecurities about leading. Is that
Yeah.
right? And I think sometimes, those insecurities show up because of the humility too. And it's not necessarily, they may be insecurities. I don't want to like speak for you and say they're not,
Sure.
but also I also see that come up as it's a humility,
Yeah.
because maybe it's like, well, I don't know if that person, but I am somebody behind the scenes that's just going to make sure things are people are doing well, projects are keeping on moving. And so just wanted to take that moment
Well,
to
I
circle
appreciate-
back and just
I appreciate
see it from a 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for seeing that. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Okay. So what are some specific ways you embody leadership on a daily basis? So this could be
Yeah.
at work or with your family, and then like maybe some habits that you do regularly to kind of keep you in that state of mind.
Yeah, I think to me, you use the word embody, and I think that's an important word. To me, I think most of the ways I see myself doing that are quietly by example, if you will. To me, it's important, that a leader sets the tone for an organization, and I think there's a lot more to that than just words. I mean, it is actions, but it's also the quiet, the interactions, the way people, carry themselves. So I think a lot of that for me is really more setting the tone and trying to embody the culture that we expect within our organization. As far as habits and practices, this may be different from the way you see it, but one of my favorite practices to embody leadership is our team meetings. A lot of people do team meetings. For my organization specifically, like I said, we've got these organizations that are across the state. We have 7 companies in Texas, 1 in New Mexico. So to every team except for Lubbock, I'm remote, which is an interesting thing to navigate. Still trying to figure that out, to be honest. But these team meetings, we do them once a month. So we meet a lot with different people, but as a whole, each team meets once a month. We do it through Teams because I want to see their faces. And it's not quite the same as being in person, but it goes a long way, right? So during these monthly team meetings, we sit down together and we share struggles. We celebrate wins. We navigate tough situations. But we're just, meeting together, being together. And then something that we added this year, that this is probably my favorite practice, is at the end of every meeting, I will reiterate our company core values. So we talk through those, and then I highlight one specific value each month, and I discuss, the importance of it, what it means to me, and then some examples maybe of how I see their team exhibiting that specific core value. And then the best part of it is we turn it over to that team then and let them shout out somebody on their team.
That's awesome.
So oftentimes, I'll give you an example. So one of our core values is teamwork. And a lot of times the people who are getting these shout outs and spotlight, are people who are more behind the scenes. So people who are really contributing, working hard from the team, they're not necessarily client facing, so they're not getting that feedback from the client. So to have these opportunities where their team members recognize them in front of their peers and celebrate them and cheer them on has been really cool. So it's, it reiterates our core values, it gives us a focus and celebrates the team. So
Yeah.
in my mind, that's a regular practice or habit that we have that I think embodies leadership for all of us, or on behalf of all of us.
That's awesome. I love that. Because you're keeping the focus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The reason why you're doing what you're doing and the things that you value as a company. I love that you end with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's was probably strategic as well.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
this is how we want to send you.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I'm sure as the year goes on, right, it's only been a few months into the year because we just started this in January. It may get to where our team's like, okay, here we go again. But it is fun. I mean, it's fun to, yes, make the focus. I think we all get so busy. Our industry is so fast paced, right? It's easy to stop. It's easy to forget to stop and remember why we do what we do, who are we, who is True Title, what makes us different. So to emphasize those core values and then again give that opportunity to spotlight somebody that's just killing it is so fun.
Well, the neat thing about rhythms too like that is that people become aware that it's coming. And so they're constantly thinking about like, okay, who can we think about with these core values?
I
and
have
hopefully
seen that happen now, but you're right. At first, people were like, what? They were unprepared. And now it's like, okay, they may not know because I randomly pick a value. So they may not know which one, but they're probably thinking like, okay, I'm seeing this in somebody and I'm ready to shout them out. It kind of gives them a different perspective. Maybe that's my hope anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to keep the values in the forefront of the mind. Yeah. How many values do you guys have?
We have 4.
Okay, awesome. Can I hear them?
Yeah. So it's teamwork, excellence, growth, and experience.
Teamwork, excellence, growth, experience. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I love it. And I do think too, as you're talking about culture as a piece that you as a leader embody. Like, I'm sure when it comes to the values, you have to be very aware too of how you're living out the values, not even just at the company, but even outside of. Yeah. Is that something you've had to intentionally be aware of, like as you're in this role?
Yeah, I think definitely so. And for me, luckily, a lot of those values are my personal core values as well. You know, I may have some others that are, you know, ahead of experience right in my personal life, but those things are all really important to me personally as well. So it's not a tough thing to make sure that I'm aligned, you know, with the way I'm living my personal life versus my professional life, but there is an awareness for sure. Yeah.
And then talk to me about culture, because culture it's honestly not something that's come up a ton.
Okay.
Which is surprising to me in a leadership world. But I love that you said it because I want to kind of veer a little bit and go into that. Culture is really tough because you can't really define it. Yeah. It's hard to like put a metric on it and say this is how we're measuring culture and the growth of culture. What has been some of the practices that you've done as a leader to help promote culture? And then how do you step back and say like, how are we doing? How do you do that self-assessment when it comes to that?
I am figuring that out as I go. I'm going to be really honest with you. And it is interesting to navigate, like I mentioned earlier, because I am remote to most of our teams. So I think it looks a lot different in Lubbock where I can go in and be physically present versus, you know, an office that's down in the valley. You know, I'm 8 or 9 hours away from them. I think for us, a lot of ways that we set the tone for our culture and the expectation for who we are, we do verbalize it a lot. You're right. It's hard to define. So if you say define culture, well, it's kind of like this intangible, right? Like you can put words behind it, but I don't know that I'd have the perfect definition for it. But I think to me, it's who we are. So who are we? Who are we as a company? And I think, you know, we're a team that believes the best in each other. We're a team that aims to serve each other and our clients with the highest level of integrity. I think we create a culture and an environment that values contribution and feedback. I think when everybody has a seat at the table and everybody has a voice that we want to hear, I think it makes a big difference. And that's something I'm really proud that we do. You know, in a lot of organizations, you teach somebody something and, you know, well, why do we do it that way? The answer will never be for us, like, that's just the way you do it. Or that's the way it's always been done, right? I think when you invite these voices to the table and you hire people with their, you know, their own brilliance, you allow that level of contribution that changes the game. So please question why. Right. You know, if you come in and you don't know how we do something, ask. And if you don't like the answer, tell me what you would do differently. Maybe it will work for us. Maybe it won't, right? Maybe we change something, maybe we don't. But I think that's always on the table. And it creates like a safe environment, a safe setting that also allows and encourages growth.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you intended to do this or not, but as you defined what culture kind of was for you guys, I just heard togetherness, each other, contribution, feedback. You use the word at the table, a voice, which is all about a network of individuals and a very familial environment.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's probably what a culture is. Even if you look at a culture as a society, it's a group, right? And so just having this idea of like, we're just in it together, creating a little tribe, right? And the tribe is helping each other survive and thrive as we move along, moving forward. So
Yeah. I love that you picked that out of what I said. That feels exactly authentic to who we are.
That's
I love
really
that.
cool. Well, I can tell that you like truly believe that.
Yeah.
Practice it, and that's what your focus is on.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so is there a pivotal moment in your career or life that has had the greatest impact on you or a huge impact on you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can think of a couple of moments in my career that have been really pivotal for my professional life, but I think the most honest and authentic answer is a lot more personal
Okay.
than that. In 2019, my husband and I lost a child. Our second son, Henry, was stillborn at 24 weeks gestation. Thank you. It's as devastating as one would imagine. I know that there's far too many people who have walked through this and felt that grief, but walking through something like that, there's a really distinct before and after. It's that big life event where I can think of, how I was before versus how I am now. And it's a big shift. It fundamentally changed a lot about who I am.
Okay.
My faith. There was a rocky period with that afterward where you're just wrestling with God. We came through a period of infertility for years prior to this pregnancy. And so it's anger of, God, how could you let this happen? We walk through so much. We're good people. We work hard. We do all the things. Like, how, God? How can you let something like this happen? And then also realizing that He can handle my anger. Yeah. That I can be honest and be angry, and He's not going to run away from me. He's not scared of me. He's not scared of my anger. And then this shift to like clinging to that, that he's the hope. He's where the hope is, knowing that you have to come back and cling to that too. So it changed me and my faith, for sure. But I think also how I view people. I mean, to pull it back to the leadership side of things. I think, a lot of people say business is business, and I don't think that's wrong. I think there's a time and place for that. But ever since we walked through that journey, it's really hard for me to separate the human element in working with people. I think when I'm meeting with a team member or working with somebody, you can't help but be curious about, what they've gone through, what they've been through. It's someone's mother or son or daughter or brother or sister. And people come to you as whole beings. I think there's an importance in somebody being able to walk through the door and leave certain things behind to get a job done. We all have to have that level of professionalism. And yet you're still a whole being, and the things that you've been through shape and make you who you are. And so for me, it's really not trying to separate so much, that again, that human element of what makes somebody who they are and meeting them where they're at. And I think just having a different level of compassion and empathy for people that, I think I've always been fairly empathetic, but then going through something like that, I mean, it's at another level now.
Yeah, man. I think, you talked about this in your faith walk, this an authenticity and honesty that kind of maybe like a veil was torn of just like, we're going heart level now with God now, and not that it wasn't heart level before, but maybe more like honesty and
it's desperation.
This is hard. I don't understand. And I think it's easy to live in the shallow.
Yeah.
And some of those big quakes in our life are the things that open up like no, I got to cling. I got to hold on. I can't let go. This is my life source, at the same time, while anger and frustration. And I can also see how that can be correlated in our relationships with each other. Because I think when we can open up and start to be really vulnerable with our spouses or our friends, or, and honesty occurs, and it may be a little bit more difficult, then the waters may get really rocky, and yet that's when you start to really cling to each other too, right? And so it's just it's interesting that does kind of open up to more areas of life than just faith. And then I want to also, you've mentioned being curious several times, like that just is something that's come up a lot.
Yeah.
One, I love that you're talking about like a whole person, because I'm with you too. I think there's always something behind the words that are spoken, the expressions that are given. Like, it's not, like, the people around me know when I'm having a bad day. Like, I come into the office and they're like,
something's up.
What's going on? Let's talk about life real quick, and then we'll get back into business. I think that's a superpower. And that's like the thing that came to my mind as you were talking, of like, I don't know if Emily knows what her superpower is as a leader or as an individual, but I would venture to guess that one of the things that is uniquely just innate to you is the way that you can lean into people and be super curious about just the wholeness of who they are, versus just like, we're all business. And so tell me a little bit about curiosity, because I want to let's hone in on that for just a second, since you mentioned that at the very beginning about effective leadership, and then you're talking about it now as even a big shift in your life took place. You begin to become more curious.
I think developing curiosity is a newer concept to me, to be honest. Newer, I mean, obviously sometime, I think after the loss that we experienced, and then, the way I view people tends to make me curious. And maybe that was when a bigger shift happened toward curiosity. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't really thought that through. Okay. I think in the past, I have always been quick to make an assumption, make a judgment, and run with it, right? And I think it kind of comes back to that level of or that conversation of surface level, right? But I think part of it's maturing in age, maybe part of it's going through some tough times, or walking through things with different types of people, that you realize there's almost always more, right? There's more to the story, there's more to the conversation, there's more to the person, but you're never going to know unless you get curious. And I think you can keep it surface level, and you can solve, that top level problem, or you can lean in and get curious and find out what makes somebody tick, what really motivates them. There's always something deeper, but I don't think until more recently in my life I understood that the importance of curiosity and asking questions. Yeah.
I'm sure as you begin to ask more and more questions, it probably uncovers so much more about navigating future problems too. As issues arise,
absolutely,
even knowing the person more is going to help them navigate whatever they're walking through too, just by staying curious. So I think it helps in relationship, but it probably helps on a business level.
Yeah,
as you're navigating
I
things.
think definitely so, and I think sometimes it helps you uncover people's strengths and skills. A lot of people can fake it till they make it. A lot of people can, go outside their comfort zone and do a certain thing, a certain job, a certain task, a certain role for a certain amount of time. But if you really get curious about the person and you learn them, you may realize as a leader ahead of time that, this may not be the best fit for them long term, or the best role for them long term. And it gives you maybe a different awareness of as your company's growing or shifting, are there better places for that person? Is that person a rock star in the wrong role? Unless you're curious and you get to the heart of that, you may not be on the lookout for trying to salvage a really great employee who just happens to be in the wrong seat on the bus.
Yeah. So how about self-curiosity? Is that something that you're aware of as well?
Yeah.
That you think about is because you're talking about how others tick and making sure that they're in the right seat, but what about internally? What does that look like?
Done a lot of that lately.
Have you?
I'm a very analytical person, and this kind of leads to another question that you and I talked about earlier on. But as far as lessons learned, I'll dive in there. So
we'll
this self-curiosity has really been instrumental, and I wish that I had done more of it earlier on. I think, I'm very analytical by nature. I will overthink something more ways than you can even imagine, right? Somebody wouldn't give something a second thought, and I've thought about it 47 different ways.
Okay.
So I'm very analytical, because I'm also curious, right? But I did not understand the importance of taking a step back and asking yourself those tough questions, not being scared of the answer, being honest with yourself, but not sitting in that perceived failure, if you will, if you don't like the answer. Like, for example, did I show up well for my team this week? Did I handle that situation in the best way? Did that interaction go the way I wanted it to? Did my team handle this particular situation in the best way? Did we get the best outcome, right? I think it's external and it's internal. Being able to step back a little bit, create some distance, and ask those tough questions of yourself, and then course correct. And I think that's the key, right? Is you ask the tough questions, you get the answer. What are you gonna do about it? Right? If you don't like the answers to the questions that you're asking of yourself, what are you going to do? And I think that's the most important part of it. So for me, that's something I've been doing really intentionally lately. Practically what that looks like for me is every Friday I block off time in my calendar.
Yeah.
And I distance myself from whatever situation it is. And maybe it's even my desk, right? So Amy Thompson mentioned this quote from a book in one of the Lead Well events that she was speaking at last year. It was Get Up on the Balcony. And I can't recall what book it was. I need to look into that. But Get Up on the Balcony. And it stuck with me so much that I put it on a sticky note and I put it on my computer monitor. And what that means to me is like, and a similar quote would be like, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're just too close to a situation and you need to distance yourself from that. So every Friday I block off time on my calendar. We're in West Texas. If the wind's not blowing 80 miles an hour, I'm going to go outside and take a walk in nature. If it is, I might be at a coffee shop with my headphones on, noise canceling, right? Yeah. Distancing myself and then reflecting. I do it a week at a time. I mean, I'm thinking about each day as it goes, right? But very intentionally, I think through the last week, and I ask those questions, like I just said. A lot of them are internal, being curious with myself. Where could I do better? What could I do better? How could I have handled something differently? Sometimes it's of my team. What is there something that I can do to help them handle a situation better next time? And sometimes the answer is great. Sometimes it's like, they killed it. We killed it. But then it's intentionally taking the time to stop and celebrate them, to shoot them an email, shoot them a text, encourage them, hey, you're killing it. You're doing a great job. Or by the flip side, right, if it's me and I'm looking at myself and saying, I don't like the way I showed up for that conversation this week, then it's taking the time to course correct and think, okay, well, how can I do better next time? What can I do differently? And then implementing that. It's one thing to think it through, to ask the question, to be honest with yourself, but to take the time to figure out how you're going to do better next time and then implement it, right? You get a new week, a fresh start. One of my favorite quotes is, when you know better, you do better. My team hears me say that ad nauseum. I say it every single day, and thank God it applies to me as much as it does everybody else. And that's really what I use that time for. Okay, when you know better, you do better. Like in the moment, I feel like I made the best decision I could. In hindsight, probably wasn't. Yep. So here's how I'm going to do better next time, and we'll just keep moving forward.
Okay, can I get practical real quick?
Yeah.
Because I think listening in, and this is almost selfish, like I want to just understand how you do this.
Okay.
But I think all leaders, I've heard so much recently about the importance of self-reflection. And it's showed up a few times in podcasts, and even as I'm just talking with people outside of this room about leadership, self-reflection comes up a lot. And it's interesting to me because on one hand, I see the importance of it. On the other hand, I realize as leaders, and just in life, we are so busy. Like, how do you balance the two things? How do you find time for that? So that's one question. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and lay them all out here.
Go for it.
So the one question is, how are you finding the time in the midst of a busy world? Secondly is, how long do you block it off practically? You talked about the where, like where you do it, if you can. And then you mentioned that it is weekly. Is that correct? As much as possible.
Yeah, and I may change the cadence of that eventually, right? But that's where I started out. And I don't know what 2025. I'm just realizing as I'm talking to you, I've made a lot of changes in 2025.
That's
So this
great.
is a new year thing.
Okay.
I mean, I sat down and was very intentional with planning out some strategies and things I wanted on my calendar for the year. And so it started in January for me, and that's the how. I guess to answer your first question, it's like, yeah, this business is crazy, right? This industry is so fast paced. And I often will joke, like, sometimes you need to grab your fire extinguisher on the way out the door, right? And just be ready because you don't know what's coming at you the second you leave.
No joke.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it's also fun, right? But because it's crazy, you have to prioritize that time. And I know that sounds maybe a little naive, like, okay, well, that's cute. Everybody says that. I mean, I literally had to block off on my calendar on Fridays. And I don't go into the office usually on Fridays. That's a remote day for me. And I do kind of hybrid like that. And I think it helps to physically be away from that. But I block off time on my calendar, and it is dedicated to that. And yes, there are some weeks where something else is more important. I mean, it has to truly be more important to take up that time, but I will reschedule my reflection time if that's the case. So the how is you prioritize it.
Okay.
You put it on the calendar and you commit. It is an appointment with yourself. It is. The where. Again, go away from the computer. And sometimes I hate that. I'm a note taker. So sometimes it's hard for me. I'll be out there walking around my neighborhood and I'm like, fumbling, getting my phone out because I just, I need to take note. I try to just think and then take note later, but it's hard for somebody. My personality, I want to take the note. Let's see, what was the other?
I would love to know how long. Like, how much time are you blocking
Yeah,
off?
so I do an hour.
You do?
Sometimes I need less. Sometimes I need more. I mean, I still try to keep that distance from an hour and just let the juices flow wherever they may go, but I block off an hour.
And then phone is okay? How does that work?
So I don't, I will turn my phone on silent.
Okay.
I have just recently discovered a joy and love of instrumental music.
Okay.
So weird.
Okay.
I never thought I'd be that person. But sometimes, like, if I have my phone on me, it's on silent. But I may turn on some instrumental music or something and put my headphones on as I'm walking. I definitely have to do that in a coffee shop because I will get distracted. So if my place of the day is the coffee shop, then I'll turn some instrumental music on, headphones on, noise canceling, but notifications off. I just silence the phone so that I don't get distracted. Now, again, that's the perfect scenario. Like, there are times when, okay, it's Friday, and in this business, Fridays are busy, right? If I know I need to be available, or if somebody else is out, I will set my phone out. I don't love that. It's not as productive, but that's practical.
Yeah.
That's what I have to do.
But you're still protecting the 1 hour. You're still in it.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That's great. And I'm selfishly asking all these questions because I've been challenged to do this as well with the self-reflection, and I even brought it up with some of our real estate agents here.
Nice.
I'm like, this is something I've been taught and been spoken about for so long recently. I think we should do it. And I don't know who, if anybody is, and just this need and necessity to turn around to that again, because I do think so much of our creativity, our vision casting, our, even looking back at the week and reflecting, and it just helps so much to just pause.
Yeah.
Sit in that for a little bit and then be able to know how we're moving forward. So
it's so important. And if you don't pause, then you're just going to keep grinding your wheels. And are you really going to get anywhere? That's the worry. And I think maybe part of this is with age too. You realize, like, time's moving really fast. Like, I do need to pump the brakes and make sure that I'm being intentional with my time.
Yeah.
And I think part of that time, it's reflection, but it's also dreaming. I mean, you touched on that too. When I started out, I called it my dreaming time. Mm-hmm. It's more reflection than dreaming, if I'm being honest. There's a lot to unpack at the end of a week. But you do have to allow yourself the same kind of time to dream and think forward. I think in our industry as well, I hate to keep harping on that, but because it is fast paced and it's changing so much, I mean, you're doing a disservice to your team if you're not also spending time dreaming, trying to figure out next steps, strategizing, and you're not going to do it if you're just in the business all day, every day.
Yeah. Goodness, I've called it thinking time. I've called it vision casting time. I've had a few.
Okay, I like these iterations.
Again, it's been years since this has happened. So
yeah,
this is something I really do want to want to implement back up again. So
Okay, well, share
thanks.
your notes with me when you do.
When that
I'm sure I can
starts up,
improve.
I'm sure it'll be coming up in this often,
Good.
talking to people.
Yeah.
So somebody will finally be able to applaud and say, hey, he did it. Finally.
You did it.
He's
Okay,
doing
I'll
some
be
reflection
listening
time.
in for that. I can't
Okay,
wait.
keywords, reflection time right there.
Reflection time.
Okay, so you've touched on this, and I'd love to make sure I understand it correctly,
Okay.
but what's one lesson that you've learned along your journey that you wish you would have learned?
Yeah, so
Early
I
on.
would say I've learned a lot of lessons. Thankfully, I've learned a lot.
Uh-huh.
I'm a lifelong learner, and I think you have to come at it from that angle, right? I
Yeah.
love to learn. I'm grateful to be able to learn. But I would say one of the most important lessons is what I just mentioned. It's you really can't understate the importance of pausing, distancing, reflecting, and course correcting.
Yeah.
You can't just go full speed ahead all the time.
Okay, thanks for summing that up, because
Yeah.
that's what I assumed you were saying.
Yeah,
But to hear it that concisely is so helpful.
yeah.
So thank you for making sure we put a pin in that one.
Got
so,
it.
all right, I want to talk about the book you
Yeah.
recommended.
Okay,
Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Is it?
that's how I say it. I
Okay,
think that's it.
great.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about why you chose this book
Okay.
as one that's been impactful, maybe
Yeah.
some specifics, and then why you'd recommend it to somebody.
I think for me, it's like right book, right time. This is this is the most recent book I read. So it's not one which feels different than maybe the assignment you gave, right? It's
Hey,
not
that's
like
okay.
a book I read 10 years ago that I keep.
Yeah.
It's very new, but I think it's right book, right time for
Yeah.
me. So it's geared more toward entrepreneurs growing a business, but I would argue that there's a lot of good nuggets in there for people in all areas of business. I think at all stages of their career. But it just hit at the right time for me. So, we've got this wonderful business that I feel really honored and blessed to be able to help steward. And so I'm really focusing on how do we keep growing. But not just that. And the focus of this book is how do you do that without burning yourself out?
Yeah.
And it's hard,
It
right?
is hard. It is.
One of the things I love about this book is it's very actionable. So at the end of every chapter, there's like a breakdown of the 5 takeaways and then a call to action. And I'm so guilty of like reading and consuming. I read 40 books. That's great. What'd you learn? All these things. Well, what did you do about it? Oh, like that's where it gets you. And this is very actionable. It's very digestible, and I liked that about it. One of my favorite things in this book, Dan lays out what he calls the drip matrix. I don't want to get too nerdy on it, but there's 4 quadrants, and you have one axis going across, and it's things that just really light you up, and then the other axis going up are things that make you money, and you've got these 4 quadrants. You have a delegation quadrant, a replacement quadrant, productivity quadrant, and then an investment quadrant. And so, top right, you've got the production quadrant, which is things that light you up and make you money. And so his goal is to get you more out of those delegation and replacement quadrants and putting more of your time and energy into things that are productive, that move your company forward, move you forward personally, while also depositing into that investment quadrant, which is things that really light you up, but maybe they don't really make you money, right? And I think starting off with a business, it's small, and as a leader, you're doing a lot of things because you have to. Like, we all do what you have to do. It's a necessity. You get things done and you move on. The problem is we don't always leave all those tasks behind. And I am guilty of that.
Yeah.
I'm more aware of that now than ever after reading this book. So I keep thinking about that matrix, in my head. And, this is something I really haven't completed this task fully, but, you audit your calendar, right? And you write these tasks in the quadrant that they belong in. And I'm still working on it, like I said, but there's a lot of tasks in areas that I don't love. It's a lot of things that, I don't know that I realized I really held on to this. And why did I hang on to this for so long? Like, at a certain point, it's not just that, I shouldn't be doing this. And you're not better than any task, right? But it's just, I actually could spend more time on this other task that helps the company more, that moves us forward more than this task in the delegation quadrant that somebody else would frankly be much better at than me.
And passionate about.
Right.
And moving the needle forward on more.
Exactly. So that's been a big one. And then he also has this concept that I really loved. And again, it's not groundbreaking. It's common concepts. I think things that should be intuitive. Sometimes again, you just see things presented in a certain way, or they're worded in such a way that they're just more impactful. And I think that's what this did for me. But he has this concept of transactional management versus transformational leadership. And I think when you start out, that transactional management makes sense. And what that is you have a team, you give them a task, they need to get, X, Y, Z done, and then you make sure it got done, and then you give them the next task. Okay, here we go to the next thing. Well, I think organically, a lot of businesses start out that way, and it's okay. But at a certain point, you really have to shift to what he calls that transformational leadership. And with that, it's remembering that you can give somebody an end goal and define what it means. He calls it definition of done. So you can say, we want to be here in a year. And when we get there, this is what it looks like. And these are the metrics we need to make sure we hit. And then you let people run with it. I talked earlier about you hire people for their brilliance. And I think I tend to forget that. I tend to control things a little too much. But with transformational leadership, again, you're giving somebody a goal and what it looks like to be done and metrics so that they know what success means, and then letting them run with it so that your business is moving forward even faster. And I've not done this well by any means, but I'm inspired to, for sure. I mean, it was encouraging for me to think, okay, it's kind of a renewed excitement to grow when you realize it's not on your shoulder.
Man, I'm such a visual person. As somebody's talking, like I get these like random images that pop in my head, and so.
Are you drawn to the Matrix?
I'm not.
Okay.
This is hilarious. I'm thinking of a little puppet show that's going on. Right? So this idea of going from transactional management to transformational leadership, like I picture this guy that's like got all these puppets in there, the strings that are little shows going on underneath, and you're kind of like hidden, and you're trying to like manage all of them, right? You're using all your limbs to like keep everything moving. And you're playing every part, and you're wiped out, and you're doing things that aren't really in your wheelhouse, and you're doing everything, so nothing's done super well. Versus saying like, "Hey, you're a great, I guess, puppeteer." I don't know when it comes to this, and this is mine, and this is yours, and then man, my focus is here, and you can really make it intricate. You can do like you're so focused that part is going to be played so well. And then even if they wouldn't do it exactly the way you would do it in an ideal world, it's still better than you trying to play all these parts. Yeah.
I'm super impressed with that visual, by the way. Like that's exactly it. I see it.
Man, you painted it really well. And so I appreciate that. And I do also acknowledge the difficulty in letting go of some of those things, but have experienced on my side of things too. And there was a group of people. I was also in Leadwell. Yeah. And they helped me with the letting go piece where you got to delegate.
It's awesome.
And I'm still growing in that. I would say I'm not quite there yet. But
me neither.
It's a growth in progress for sure. Okay.
I wrote down a couple quotes from that I want to share because it's kind of on that note, and I love it.
Awesome.
I wrote them down because I didn't want to get them wrong. The first one is efficient busyness on the wrong tasks simply creates a faster streamline to burnout. Just right along the lines of what we were just talking about. Yeah. And I love efficiency. Man, I love efficiency. But I'm so guilty of misplacing it, right? Like it sounds great. You're efficient. Well, wrong task. You're just going to get burned out. So that one really hit home for me.
Okay.
Another one, perseverance without passion isn't grit, but merely a grind.
Perseverance without passion
isn't grit, but merely a grind. Yeah. And I think that there's a time and a season to grind. I've done it maybe longer than I should. Yeah. I'm sure you feel that too.
Yeah, you may have to for a little bit.
You do, yeah.
You don't want to live in that?
You don't want to live in that. But I think the key component to that is passion. As he said, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And I loved that. And then one more. This one's longer, and then I'll stop. But this goes to that transformational leadership component that we were talking about. And the quote says, once you change the way you lead, leaders under you will change the way they lead. Overall, you can give your company a new way of thinking, one that empowers every employee to take responsibility over their role. You build the people, and the people build the business.
Another visual. This one's been one that has been in conversations with me in the last few weeks. Like, I've just brought it up more and more. And it's this idea of ripples. We all are creating ripples in the water. Like, we're all in the same pond, pool, lake, whatever, together. And all of us are making impacts. Some of them are bigger ripples than others, and some of them are really good ripples, and some of them not so much. But all of our actions are causing like reactions, right? And they extend out. And as you're talking about leadership, like, it's about building good leaders who are then kind of making their own impacts in their own circles and their own worlds. I just cannot help but think of this ripple effect, right? We're all just creating these waves around us. And so I think
and your podcast is a good example of that. I think I told you I've loved being a listener and learning from all these individuals who are so much more advanced than me, or just in different fields. And I think that's huge ripples that you're creating
awesome
with this podcast. I love that visual too.
The cool thing is these ripples are from somebody else too. Like, that had an effect on me to then help push this a little bit further out. So it's so cool.
Cool.
Thanks for sharing those quotes. It's super helpful.
Yeah.
Burnout is real.
Burnout's real.
It doesn't matter where in life you sit, but it's a real thing. And so
it'll sneak up on you too.
I love the passion mixed with that, because passion and purpose and then productivity, like, when you get all those things together, priorities, it just is, it's powerful. I just realized I used like a lot of P's right there.
I know. Priorities. I need to add that to my list. That's awesome.
Okay, well, this has been good. I feel like we could keep talking about this for a long time, go on forever, and I love that. But let's conclude with my favorite question, which is, if you could define leadership in one sentence, like, just sum it all down, what would that sentence be?
That's a hard one.
It is?
Yeah. I think, in a nutshell, to me at least, leadership is using your influence to serve those around you and to support them to reach goals or a common vision.
Okay. So influence, service, supporting, and then reaching the common goal.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it all starts with, like, the influence, which I view as ripples.
Yeah.
Right? Ripples in the water. I can hear that. I've heard that from the very beginning of when you started all the way through it. It's just this level of service that you have, support for people around you, and you seem like a great vision caster, and one that also just helps keep people kind of reined in on what that vision looks like, even if it's just bringing your core values back over and over and over again. And so keep being such a great change maker. I love what you're doing. I could tell your heart for people is genuine. It's so authentic. And I'm sure that's why people are okay being under your leadership and watching. And I say under your leadership, that's not even how you would say it. No. Like, side by side with you as you're journeying through to the next step. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks for your time. I had a blast. And so many great nuggets in this one. And again, selfishly, the thing I get to do is go back and edit these things over and over again. So I get to hear your message like on repeat for a while, and I can't wait to dive into that. So
follow up with me on your reflection time. I
can't wait. I will. I'll keep posted on that, and hopefully you'll hear about it in the future episodes to come.
Can't wait.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ruben.